the time between Spooner and Orwell, what happened to that federal government and its ability to control and destroy, grew in such an exponential way. I'm not sure Spooner would, like, on the one hand, he'd be able to believe it, but then, like at the same time, the fact that we're all walking around with this, with the government in our face, and not only do we do it, but we pay for better service, for the picture to be more clear and the recordings to be more crisp. I think, there's a point where it would disconnect, like, holy shit. I mean, I was talking with somebody else, I'm like, half the founding fathers would wonder why we haven't burned the fucking place down by now.
Greetings, sovereign citizens. I am Patrick Smith. This is Disenthrall. Today in studio, we have the Shawn Jones, who's running for not congressman in the Libertarian Party of Texas. Welcome to the show, Shawn.
Thanks for having me.
Why are you running for not congressman? Tell us about that.
Well, running for not congressman, whatever you want to call it. I am running because we have, for decades now, nothing but corruption, lies, and skullduggery. We are in desperate need. Indeed.
I love that word.
There's a desperate need for somebody to tell the truth and lob truth bombs in a room full of thieves and liars.
Skullduggery is an actual word. It's not just like a slang term. You can look it up. What does it mean?
Deception and coercion. It elaborates from that, but deception and coercion could...
And that's part of your campaign slogan, right?
Correct.
What
the
is it?
Skullduggery stops here.
The skullduggery stops here.
That is the slogan.
That is awesome.
Yes.
Very cool. So, I've known Shawn just a couple days over a year now, and I know that thanks to Zuckerberg letting us know that we just hit a friendiversary.
That's right. Friendiversary 3 days ago.
Yeah. So...
Hashtag besties.
There's been one kind of conversation that has been reoccurring over the past year. Every time we meet up, he comes to a lot of the Thursday Voluntaries of Dallas meetups. There's so many ways to digress in this conversation. So we have we have a local meetup where it's the second largest in the country, in the world actually right now, where volunteers meet up every Thursday to just meet and hang out and have a community and build friends. He's been coming to some of those, so we've had this conversation that's popped up repeatedly. Before I get any farther, I got to shout out to the new Patreon supporter who picked one of the upper echelon tiers of support. Thank you to Will. This episode is dedicated and definitely produced and sponsored by you. I appreciate it. Having a Patreon has been a really cool new thing for me because it makes me hold to my own standards. Like, I will not produce content on this channel that violates the non-aggression principle, that is unprincipled in any way, because now I feel like I have an obligation to the supporters, the people that put their money behind what I'm doing. So that motivates me because it tells me I'm on the right track and that people are valuing what I'm saying. So thank you to all the Patreon supporters. And it also makes me hold to my standards more because I don't want to let you guys down. So thank you for supporting, putting your money where your beliefs are. Appreciate that. Now, back to the thing that we've been talking about for a year. So it's this thing where you come from a perspective of you have to be careful who you spend your money with in your day-to-day life. You have to be careful what companies you do business with because you don't want to support evil things that those companies do. And I usually take kind of the opposing view to that. I'm much more skeptical, or I would say I have like a higher standard of evidence required before I think I can link you to what the company does. Like, if you're just doing business and trading value for value, I'm not sure that I see, with like no more specifics really, that really links you in. And then today he came up with something new. I'll let you kind of describe what you were thinking about with voting today.
All right. There's been a lot of talk, and I know Patrick's gotten a lot of flack for promoting the idea, disavowing the concept of defensive voting. And I've been seeing a lot of parallels between the two, or at least I perceive them as that.
Maybe we should describe that first, then we can go to your linking to corporations. Okay. What do you think?
Okay.
So if you haven't heard my case, this is the only point where I think Lysander Spooner got it wrong. He wrote an amazing book. You should all read Spooner's work. It's fantastic. It's why I have his face on my wall behind us. And the subtitle, I don't know that you can see it, is Philosopher Badass. That is Lysander Spooner. He's an inspiration to me. He wrote No Treason, No Treason, the Constitution of No Authority. Go check that book out. It will change how you imagine how this country was founded and where it thinks it got its just powers from, and that they're not really valid. In the book...
I was going to say, true story, I was a constitutionalist before I read that book.
Oh, really?
Destroyed my mindset. Or I deferred back to the Constitution heavily before that. And he was able to turn that into confetti and blow it all over my mind.
Just shreds it. Just shreds the notion that the Constitution was ever, even in the beginning, was ever a valid governing document with any kind of just authority. In the book, though, he talks about voting, briefly. It wasn't a large portion of the book, but he likened voting to bullets fired at each other. So you try and make the world around you into the way you want it by voting. And other people might not agree with how you want them to behave or how to live. And so to them, that vote is an attack on how they want to live their life. An attack that should be defended against, or that you should be able to rightfully defend yourself against or defend yourself from. So he likened it to, somebody fires a vote bullet at you. Well, you're more than justified in firing a vote bullet back at him. And so he just equated voting to sort of this defensive force situation where voting is always justified because you're just defending yourself against other people's vote bullets fired at you. This is the only place, and I want to make it clear, I'm not disparaging Spooner. I'm telling you, I got him on my wall. He's one of my heroes. Nobody gets everything right, and I'm free to disagree with anyone that I think gets something wrong. And this is the tiny little point, yet important, yet critical, crucial point where I think you got it wrong. I think you can never call something self-defense that creates new victims. So what does that mean? It means that if there is a referendum, a vote, or a candidate, let's say, this is my big experiment over the past year, that will have no new victims, that will violate no one's consent. So that's a very limited criteria, right? That means, like Shawn, if he wins, he's not going to cash a paycheck with stolen money. He's going to voluntarily fund everything he does. He's going to, vote no and vote against anything that violates anyone's consent. So to me, he is one of the rare diamonds that might be a safe vote. Because if he wins, he gets power that he only uses for good. He only uses to reduce the violation of consent from the government. Any other candidate that goes on and wins the power, I help a candidate win the power with my vote. I am culpable for what that candidate does. And if that candidate then violates new people's consent or continues the violation of people's consent, I have linked myself through my action to that candidate's actions. You can't call what I'm doing self-defense if I'm helping hurt people. That's my case against Spooner. And that's I don't want to go into a full 30-minute presentation on that. I think that might deserve its own video. But to set it up, that's the case. And then take it from there with where you went.
And I would say that I actually believe I'm closer to believing in Spooner on that than you are, which is the great part of the conversation. Whereas Patrick believes that there is culpability in the vote because of the actions that politician that you helped get elected make. I'm bringing the parallel that in our consumer habits in our daily lives, there could be culpability in the where we're spending our money. If I am giving my money to a company that I know is going outside of my area and using my money to, say, buy off another dirty government or to pollute the rivers in a third world country so that I could get my goods exported back here, leaving my natural area safe, am I not helping this company by continuing to purchase their goods have the buying ability to go and do evil things in other places? And much like the American people decide to ignore the wars going on outside of our border because they're not happening, I also see this much the same as that my dollars and who I give my money to, if they are using it outside of my area and using it for bad, while I may not be directly culpable, I can tell you as an individual, I feel shitty about it. I do not like giving my money to people that I know are unethical. And I would, I could use a company like Nestle is currently a amazing, disturbing story of a company who is working hand in hand with government to access clean water and drain natural resources from people at pennies on its value and then sell it back to the consumers. And I will say like a place like Flint, Michigan, where you can't get clean water very easily. The state of Michigan has now granted Nestle carte blanche to drain clean water out of the Great Lakes. So the government is now making money on Nestle. They're not fixing the water for the people of Flint. And is me helping Nestle not directly causing this because they already are a behemoth, but I'm continuing to validate their existence and their behavior by purchasing their product.
So would you say that's a NAP violation to buy something from Nestle? Because based on the language I was listening, based on the precise language you just used, I completely agree. We can call that behavior shitty. But is it a violation of the non-aggression principle? Can I attack you if you purchase from Nestle?
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Then I don't think we disagree. Because now we're out of the realm of evil. We're out of the realm of the NAP. And we're into, subjective preference. I would prefer that people not do business with people that make the world a worse place.
And the reality is Nestle controls the majority of the bottled water in the United States now, actually around the globe. So your ability to purchase water in a non-Nestle way is shrinking rapidly, which then brings me back to, do we have... obligation is not the right word. Let me rephrase this. I feel an obligation to not give the bastards money and to try to find other ways to purchase goods and services. Because I do know that ultimately, at the end of the day, the corporation only cares about the dollar. Whether I live, die is absolutely irrelevant. Who I vote for is irrelevant. Am I going to buy their goods? Or am I going to promote their goods? That's what they care about.
So I guess my next question for you, well, actually, the next thing I'd say, just to stay on topic before we digress, because I want to digress really bad, but I would say that there is a distinction then between my conception of voting culpability and what we're talking about with doing business with corporations. I say that if you put your human action, your positive human action behind a politician to assist that politician in granting power, and they use that power for evil, that you are culpable. You have violated the non-aggression principle through helping that person gain power to violate other people's consent. I think you bear a partial culpability for whatever that politician then goes on to do that's evil in the world, to the extent that you are culpable, meaning you owe restitution to all the people that you assist that guy in violating consent, that you assist that guy in his violation of people's consent, in the damages that he does to people's lives. I think you owe rightful restitution. So I think that's the difference between these two conversations. One is, I think, let's talk about what we think shitty behavior is, but I'm saying the line is the NAP, and I think voting crosses that line. Voting for, I gotta specify every time. I think voting for non-NAP compliant candidates and non-NAP compliant referendums, and that is just a complicated way of saying candidates that create victims, referendums that create victims. When you create victims, when you violate consent, you violate the non-aggression principle, and that's different than maybe doing business with some of the companies. So, can you give us some examples though of how you change how you live your life to be more in line with not doing business with bad companies? Like, let's talk through some of those, because I can switch sides too and try and come up with sometimes where doing business with a corporation might actually cross the line of NAP violation.
Okay. Things. My water bottle, reverse osmosis system that I have at home, so that I stop buying as much bottled water. Every now and then I get put in a spot.
You don't drink the city water.
No.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
The like 3,000 chemicals that are used to clean it. I can go into my foil hat of fluoride, but
only if you want. I want to explore the Shawn.
I do not think that city water is a quality product for my body, and so I prefer reverse osmosis. I also work outside a lot in the heat, and so I found myself at times buying an enormous amount of plastic bottled water, and again, from a company like Nestle, which I prefer not to give my money to. So one of the ways that I could do that is set up my own water system. Before that, I used to buy from a guy in Plano that had a water store, and I would just go get my 5-gallon jugs filled with him so that I can carry around my own water.
So that you don't have to buy from Nestle?
Correct.
Okay.
And I can also control the purity of what's going in my body.
Which is the primary reason?
Yes.
Which one? I'm asking.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which really came first in my mind. I started getting into kind of some of the thoughts about the sciences and dangers behind fluoride, while at the same time I could also look at the floorboard of my truck and see 13 plastic bottles crumpled up from one day, which did not make me feel particularly warm and fuzzy,
right.
As I know that most of our military interventions have something to do with oil somewhere.
I know very little of the... I don't want to say conspiracy theories, but I know very little of the rhetoric. I don't even know what to call it. What do you call it? The stuff behind fluoride. I know very little information about what people say about fluoride. So can you give me like the quick couple, like what are the top 2 bad things about fluoride?
Well, it is classified as a neurotoxin, first off. So, I mean, and this is the World Health Organization, the Lancet Journal, which is the Western world's oldest medical journal. And I believe now the Harvard School of Public Health has also come out. It is deemed as a neurotoxin. It has been proven to slow cognitive abilities in children. It calcifies the pineal gland, which is a part of our mind that kind of centers the body, as well as it calcifies and deposits in our joints.
I don't want my pineal gland getting calcified. I think I'm just not going to drink any city water anymore.
Pineal gland.
You sold me right there. There's the pineal gland. That was what did it. Why didn't you tell me that a year ago?
It's not as cool a gland as you think it is.
Oh, okay. All right. What else? What are some other examples?
Of different products
ways you've changed your life to not do business with companies that are doing evil in the world.
It's becoming tougher and tougher as the vacuum grows.
You had another point, right, where you think that, I guess, as your socioeconomic status goes up, the easier it is to live. What would you say?
Well, certainly. I mean, the more money you have, the freedom of choice you have. You know, I can choose to buy products from local vendors. I can go to the farmer's market for my fruits and vegetables. There's a lot. I can afford to buy an RO system and put it in my house, or buy a cooler to get it refilled. Filter. Correct.
Okay.
Reverse osmosis.
You're so fancy.
I know. I try. But certainly money gives you the flexibility to pick and choose some of those things.
Okay.
So it does become increasingly more difficult the lower on the economic chain you are to have principle guide some of those decisions, or say no to certain products, when the reality is that those corporations that have usually grown to power through some unethical form of government protectionism, they have such a dominance on the market that if you go into a place like District 30 where I'm running, you have a lot of what are called food deserts, where literally if you don't have a car, it is going to be a 2-hour bus ride there and back to go get groceries.
Wow.
And so now you're making the decision, can I even buy ice cream? Because it's going to be melted by the time I get back. Can I buy that little treat that's frozen, or the frozen food, or fresh meat? A lot of times people are making decisions that come back to they've got to buy canned goods that are typically less healthy, dried goods, and if they are having to take a bus and going an hour.
Just so that the food can survive the ride home.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And I was down at there's a co-op farm down in my district called Bonton Farms, and they are talking, it's for them to commute, the people of Bonton to commute back and forth to the grocery store. It's an hour and a half each way.
So why doesn't a grocery store move into the area to solve the demand?
Because that is a very broken, small portion tucked away in southeast Dallas.
Okay, so it's a bad neighborhood. Nobody wants to open a business there.
Correct.
Okay. And whose fault is it that it's a bad neighborhood?
That's a long conversation.
It is.
That's a long conversation.
But I'm sure government is near the top of the list.
Oh, well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we can go back into Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams and welfare being an extension of slavery.
That's a whole video.
Oh, yes.
I want to hear what you're about to say, but I don't want to start an hour-long conversation. Can you give me like the one or two lines of what that means? What do you mean?
In Sowell and Williams, we'll go back and they will talk about what Black America looked like 100 years after slavery, and then they will talk about what Black America looked like 30 years after the welfare state.
I see.
Across the board, fatherless homes tripled.
Okay.
The education level across the board actually lowered. The safety of the communities.
You mean the slaves had better education than the average black person does now? This is what they're saying?
When the government was not interfering in the black community and telling them how to do things, they were taking care of themselves in a substantially...
after slavery, but before now?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
All right.
If you take 1940s Black America and 1980s Black America, the rate of nuclear families, the rate of education were all considerably better.
Okay.
So...
Okay.
It is. The plantation changed formats.
To welfare.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
Well, and when you think about it, the welfare system will tell you what you can buy, where you can live, and when you can get clothes. It's a controlling element that is masquerading as a gift or kindness.
Do you feel that people are trapped in the welfare system?
Absolutely.
Really?
I do.
Okay, how?
Well, I think when you are surrounded by nothing but a system that lowers the collective IQ and community, it becomes harder and harder to get outside of it. Not that it can't be done.
This is how Oliver, this is why we haven't reached easy resolutions to these conversations for a year, because we just go and we get on these trails. And I like the trails. How does the system lower the collective IQ, the average IQ?
Well, I mean, I think we can say that government education over the last 40 years and the development of the Department of Education has proven that educational standards have lowered. As we have gone to the No Child Left Behind type programs, what we've had to do is lower that bottom to make sure that everybody achieves the same level. As we're lowering the bottom, well, the ceiling is also coming with it.
Because why work is hard if you don't have to?
Well, and even from a teacher, your end goal is only to get them to graduate, just to get them to pass the test and out the door.
It's pretty hard to get fired, too, especially in certain states, yeah.
So I think when you're surrounded by people who now, you're talking people have generationally been on welfare. I have met humans who, when asked the question, what do you do? The answer was welfare. They're generationally on welfare.
Okay. Well, I mean, I haven't really disagreed with anything that you've said so far, especially because we have that line between subjective and NAP violation for doing business with companies. I think you can expect somebody with the means to not buy from Nestle if they can do it, and affect that change in their life without not drinking water. And you can't expect, somebody that can't avoid drinking city water or drinking Nestle water or whatever. That's fine. Yeah, I really don't disagree with you. So let's flip sides now. What is a situation in which doing business with a company would necessarily, absolutely make you culpable for the crime of a company?
Well, Halliburton won't sell me anything directly.
So, I mean, where the line? Let's start with an easy case, right? So you walk into Walmart, and they have a rack of T-shirts, and the sign above the rack says, $20 T-shirts, $10 donated to Halliburton. Does that make you culpable?
I don't know about that, but it makes me an asshole.
Okay.
So
if it says $10,
here's one that happened to me last year that really annoyed the piss out of me.
I want to find where the line is. Where do you become attackable? Where do you violate the non-aggression principle? Go ahead, sorry.
I used to buy all of my tires from Discount Tire because, well, they have a really good product.
Yep.
Well, the owner of Discount Tire donated more than $1 million.
Oh, I don't want you to tell me this because I use Discount Tires. Whatever you're about to tell me, go ahead.
To continue to fight to keep the prohibition of cannabis going. I think the Publix grocery store in Florida did something similar as well. So now I'm buying tires from a company that openly advocates for caging human beings for possession of a plant. And while they may not say they are advocating for caging a human being, by their giving money to the anti-marijuana legislation, the end result is they are giving money to the people who want to do harm to peaceful people who have a plant.
Did the corporation give the money, or did the owner give his private money? Personal money. And does that make a difference?
In my mind, it doesn't.
Really?
No.
Okay.
His money is all sourced from the same location. I mean, whether the money
He might make most of his income from his investments.
That he made from me buying tires from. I've bought a shitload of tires from that guy.
I'm just asking the question.
I was so angry because essentially it cost me an extra $300 for a set of tires now.
Yeah.
So then I go to, well, how much are my principals worth? Are they worth an extra $300 per 40,000 miles? The answer is yes. As much as it pisses me off, I know, makes me angry.
I think you're thinking about it poorly. I think you shouldn't say principles. I don't know. I have a very narrow definition of principles, which is basically the non-aggression principle. Like anything outside of that is just more like a preference.
Well,
so are you violating your preferences? Yeah, maybe, but you're not like a bad person. Like I can't attack you. That's a better way of saying it. I can't attack you for doing it. Now let's find like, okay, you walk into Discount Tire Co. and he's got a set of 4 tires there that you need, and above it the sign says half of the money that we make from your purchase is going to go to pay the pension funds for the cops that cage people for weed or something. Like, have we crossed into NAP violation yet? What would it take? I think that is. I would say that is you're supporting evil at that point. With foreknowledge.
If the foreknowledge was there, you could make that argument, except I would say that those people probably feel that the police are making their neighborhood safer. So in their mind, they're not.
I mean, you and me and like people that know.
Would it give me the right to aggress on them? No, I don't.
Okay, then we're not there yet. Let's keep trying.
I don't. Okay,
so you got a set of 4 tires. Half of the purchase price of this purchase will go to purchasing bombs to drop on Iraq.
Well, I did pay my taxes.
No one pays taxes. Taxes are extorted through force.
Well.
No, we're buying bombs now. Are we breaching the NAP?
We are breaching the NAP.
Okay, well, we found the line.
Yes.
So now we can work back the other direction. That's why I always do it. I try this side, and then I try the opposite side, because that's how you find what's right and what's wrong, right? But
let's stick with plausible things. Discount Tire isn't buying bombs.
No. But the point is, like, if buying the tires that supported the war on drugs was not a NAP violation, and buying bombs was, that means the line is in between supporting the war on drugs with a sign that says we're supporting the war on drugs. That's still not a violation. So that means the line is after that. That means that when we're back having our earlier conversation where we're buying, paper towels from Walmart, that we're nowhere in the vicinity of an actual NAP violation.
I could go deep.
You see how we did that?
I could actually tie paper towels into caging people, but I'm not going to because that's a completely different long one.
Okay.
Has to do with the prohibition of industrial hemp years ago. So,
okay.
In the paper industry, but
okay.
Let's.
Walmart did that? Never mind. We're gonna get into it.
Walmart did not. It would just be the purchasing of paper
I
towels.
like our bunny trails. We go cool places.
I don't. And I guess maybe we are disagreeing on maybe how we're defining principled or ethical. Because I think you can be unprincipled and still doesn't give me the right to violate your nap,
right.
And aggress on you, because although you are engaged in shitty behavior or you're condoning it somewhere.
And I should clarify that, because these words like what is moral, what is ethical, what is principled have been used and misused so many times in so many different ways over the entire history of the human species, right? I have been fighting and working to refine the use of the words and to refine the definitions of the words. Like, what is evil? If you ask 100 people that, you're going to get 100 different answers of what is evil, what is principled, what is not. I'm trying to put objective, universalizable definitions on them. And so when we're having these talks, I'm using the definitions that I'm trying to like work on and put forward into the world as like the correct ones, so to speak. Which I assume everyone's doing, but I'm going to try and be persuasive, and that's my right to do. So my definition of what is evil is something that violates the non-aggression principle, something that violates someone's consent in a way that you can use defensive force against that person to stop them from doing that, let's say. So that's what's evil. Anything that doesn't meet that standard, you can't call evil. You could call really, really shitty, undesirable asshole behavior, but you're not evil. You're not necessarily violating principle, the non-aggression principle. You're not unethical. You might be shitty, but you're not immoral.
Well,
you might be worthy of being ostracized completely out of any civilized society and made to, basically huddle on your little square inch of property trying to, produce your own food and water to survive because no one will do business with you. But you know what I mean? Does this make sense?
Nestle would still do business with me.
Nestle would. Okay. All right. Well, I hope I clarified that.
Well, so
we need a better word for shitty people, is what I'm trying to say. Like merely calling them unprincipled or
status.
I think.
I
think now, like when people say, "Oh, that's immoral. That person is evil," I think those words have been so muddied and so watered down.
Well, I agree.
Purposefully, in a lot of cases, by the state itself.
I agree, and I don't think that. I'm
trying to bring them back.
I don't think. Unfortunately, most people aren't aware when I talk about buying with ethics and using your dollar to really make a difference and affect some sort of change. I don't think most people are buying these products because they don't care or because they're a shitty, unethical person. A lot of it is just ignorance. Now, the question is how much of it is willful ignorance.
Well, I mean, my first reaction when you started telling me your story about Discount Tire was, oh, he's going to tell me something that will make me not want to shop there anymore. And you did.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't want to hear this, because that's the importance of knowledge. Like, freedom is knowledge plus choice. If you don't have knowledge, then you're not really free. If you don't have choice, you're not really free. So your agency, that's what it is. Agency is knowledge plus choice. So when you gave me the knowledge, well, now you've given me agency. Now you've given me culpability in a way. Not I would say not in the like ethical non-aggression principle way, but now I have knowledge. Knowledge is power and responsibility. It's power plus responsibility.
Yes. The responsibility is the part people hate.
I know, and that's what I felt. I experienced that. It's like, oh, now I'm responsible for that choice, right?
Yes.
So now I got to go look around. So what's the other one? What's the blue one? The blue tire place. It's the like only other
Goodyear?
big tire place. Yeah, maybe. DHL.
Oh, NTB.
NTB.
Yeah,
that's it. DHL shipping company. Anyway.
DPS is blue.
So has NTB?
Do not know. Do not know.
All right. Do you
I
want to know?
I gravitated to the discount
Tell
tire
us in
one.
the comments what evil MTB has done.
Yes, if you know that
and
they
we'll never
suck.
shop anywhere again.
I'm gonna have to start learning how to make my own goddamn tires soon.
So that's what. As long as we're not saying it's like evil in terms of an app violation, then we don't disagree.
Well, no, because I do think you have to have some kind of prior knowledge of what you're purchasing, like what that company represents, what they're doing. You have to have some kind of knowledge to be culpable.
I do the same thing with my activism. Like, one of my primary jobs is to show government the evil that they're doing, and then to show them how they're linked to that government evil by voting. And that is an uncomfortable truth that makes people understand the reality of their responsibilities.
But then you're going to get into the arguments of, do the goods outweigh the bads?
If you're going to make that argument, make that argument.
I am not saying that I'm willing to. I'm playing the devil's advocate of what people tell me.
Okay.
As I was having a conversation on Facebook today about, how awesome Robert O'Rourke was compared to Ted Cruz. And I brought up what is going around about apparently Mr. O'Rourke made quite a bit of money as a city councilman using eminent domain to seize people's land and then sell it to developer buddies. Their response was, well, Ted Cruz wants to use eminent domain to build him a wall.
Really?
Well, I think that is part of the wall. That's part of the wall plan.
Like the national wall plan?
Yeah, okay. Which,
Ted Cruz is the
Texas senator.
Are you running it? No, the other guy's running against Cruz, right?
Yeah, Neil Dykman.
Neil Dykman. Okay. That's another conversation.
That is.
Who are you running against?
I am running against Miss Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Okay. I don't know anything about it.
82 years old. She got nominated. She took office in 1993 off the 92 election. I think she was a state representative for like 12 years before that. She's hangs out in D.C. all year. Apparently got a nice office in Deep Ellum. She doesn't campaign. She really doesn't have to do anything. She's got a walking path straight into office every couple of years.
Because your, what do they call it, district or whatever, is very blue?
Very blue, very broke. Primarily black and Latino until you get a little bit further down. But it is by far the most economically slow to develop in the greater DFW area. So when you look at all of this mass growth that we've had in the last 20 years, there's none of it happening down there.
Well, it's very blue.
It's very broke.
Yeah, that too.
There's plenty of other blue parts.
There's a correlation there.
There is, but there's red districts that are broke. This is just one that, for whatever, not really sure what has led it to be left behind quite as much as it has.
So how do you package your, ANCAP voluntarist message to those people in that district?
Well, there's things that I'm, working on pitching. Like, to start, as we know, the tax system isn't going to go away overnight. I would like to see anybody who makes under $52,000 a year not pay any federal income tax. What I would also like to do, my hope is that by allowing those people that have some kind of government assistance program, give them enough money of their own money that they've made, let them keep that so that they don't need government assistance.
I was under the impression that under that level, you get a full refund anyway every year.
You don't want a refund. Why refund? Just let them keep it.
I'm just saying.
Why should the government get an interest-free loan on the money anyway?
Sure. I was under the impression that they already don't really pay. I forgot I don't know what the number is off the top of my head of, like, under this number, most people don't actually, I said pay, slap me. Like dollar in the jar or whatever. People under that level already aren't taxed.
I Well, the FICA, Social Security, it all still comes out.
I see. Yeah, that's true.
And so they need money right now. And I would rather them keep their own money, make their own decisions with that money, than having to check in through government agencies to beg and, get permission for the money. So I think that would it would lower the scope of government assistance programs, which at least theoretically lowers our tax liability as a whole. Theoretically, I understand, but I can only, I can say we need to abolish all of the federal system, which I will, but it has to be a starting point for something.
I think it's a good example of a non-aggression principle compliant position, because over the past year, I've been in conflict with a lot of the leadership of the Texas party, saying that, I don't want any, I basically want to, sabotage the party and eliminate everyone. We have a phone call coming out on that soon.
Saboteur?
Yeah, but, and they say, so, you're saying that all voting is immoral, all participation in politics is immoral. And I say no. This is an example of a NAP-compliant position. It only reduces violation of consent, and in no way supports or makes worse other types of violation of consent. It's not the absolutist, like as Rothbard would say. Both absolutist positions are wrong. The one that calls for immediate abolition of government and nothing less than that is not going to work. It's ineffective. And the position that accepts any little incremental compromise that maybe lowers taxes here and raises them there, like that's almost worse in a way, because you're not even a principled individual. You're just a mealy-mouthed R&D politician.
If the sum balance is the same, I'm gonna give it back one place, but then I'm gonna steal it from the other. It's not actually giving anything back. It's just a shell game of money. So, my hope, or at least my vision, is that, one, by me not taking a paycheck and not taking the $1 million a year stipend that you're allowed to run the offices, I can, in hopes, I think that I can run everything for about $400,000 a year and pay my taxes. Congress gets about 1.3 and change million to do that. So I'm thinking right off the bat that I can save 65, 70% compared to what they spend, which I'm hoping lets people see exactly how much waste and bloat there is, how much money is just being milked.
I'm just saying, this is my point. Like, this is an example of a non-aggression principle compliant, no victims at all way, if you must function in politics. If you want to try and be effective, I think this is the ethical, and when I say ethical, you know what I mean now, way of doing it, right? And also, it's a huge differentiator. Have you ever heard of a politician swear off cashing paychecks for stolen money? Think of the message that would send if he wins. Headlines: Congressman wins and won't cash a paycheck. Congressman wins and is voluntarily funded, maybe for the first time in the history of the country. I don't know that any politician has ever been. Certainly
in the modern era.
Maybe in the very beginning they self-funded, I think is how it worked. But, if he wins, I'm going to help raise money to voluntarily fund his activism, because what he's doing is activism, unlike pretty much every other politician that goes in to be a politician.
My goal will really only be able to drop truth bombs for 4 years and hope to stay alive during that time. I mean, that's really it. I mean, I have figured I haven't budgeted for a bodyguard yet, but that may be a consideration that I have to take in.
I got you. There are people that will help you in that regard.
We know a few. Yeah. I'm thinking.
These aren't. Never mind.
Pay no attention to these.
Oh yeah, so this is foreshadowing for an episode soon. This is a 80% lower. We have in my ownership the very first Ghost Gunner, serial number 001, actually the only one with a serial number that we will be using to create ourselves a gun, and we'll live stream it just like we did with the 3D printing the Liberator. So that'll be fun. Anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah.
All right. It was really good talking to you. We should do this more often.
Yes.
I think the only other teaser I'll throw at you guys is we are considering doing an interesting sci-fi philosophy type show. We don't really have a name for it yet. Maybe you guys can help us think of a name. But what we're thinking about doing, and we'll start with like Star Trek Next Generation because that was the best one. We will go like episode by episode by episode, and on the ones that have good stories or good philosophical or ethical quandaries, we'll talk about them. We'll talk through the ethics of the random Star Trek shows. Because Star Trek is like a unique show in that almost every episode they tried to teach some moral lesson.
It is.
And some of those moral lessons are really good. And some of them are fucked up.
Well, yes, and I will make a parallel that I know a lot of Feel the Burners that were next gen guys that I grew up with. And I've noticed as I've rebooted through it over the last year and kind of went back and watched it cover to cover, they Feel the Burners of my generation are enamored with the cashless society and all the happy communism that's in it.
Yep.
But if you're listening closely, inevitably Picard drops these just staggering truth bombs on individuality and self-ownership being the highest premium of all living sentient beings. And so I found it interesting how people have taken what they like. They get the warm fuzzy of cashless society and, everybody just has their own little job that they do and it's wonderful until they're put in these difficult situations. And then he will just rattle off something that's like, holy shit, Picard's an anarchist. Like,
except for the commie that runs the whole Federation. But see, there's so many great conversations I think we're going to get into if you're a nerd, if you're into Star Trek, and then after we're done with Star Trek, I'm sure there's other shows and stuff that we can do after that if it takes off, if it's something you find interesting. I think we're going to try that out. And the idea is we're going to say, we're going to watch these episodes and then we're going to do the critique or the review or the talk through of each of those episodes. So you can do it along with us. You'll know, this week is going to be episodes 1, 2, and 3, for example, and you guys can watch them and then watch our content. So it might be fun and interactive. Maybe we'll live stream it or something. I don't know. We'll see what we do.
That would be cool, especially if enough people watched it beforehand.
Yep.
Could actually send in, call in, get some questions or some thoughts, maybe angles that we haven't thought about.
We can certainly live stream it. Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool, guys. You want to plug your congressional run, your non-aggression principle compliant, not congressman website and stuff?
ShawnJonesForCongress.com, Shawn Jones for Congress on Facebook.
That's SHAWN.
That is SHAWNJONESFOR Congress.
All right,
Congress
cool.
is spelled SATAN.
So the last thing I'll mention is that there's this new video platform called bit.tube. And I know we've been pumping a lot of different platforms lately, but I think we might have found the one that will replace Steemit, that'll replace DTube, that might even replace BitChute because it allows everybody involved to get money. Even the viewers, you can make money by watching videos, which you can then use to cash out or tip the channels that you find you enjoy their content. So check out bit.tube/Disenthrall. I think the link will be in the description. I think we're definitely going to start publishing all of our content there. Check it out. Let me know what you think. So far, it's pretty slick, pretty awesome. Until next time, thanks for watching.